What's going on, guys? It's your boy Soy Kadagari. Welcome to a new video. In today's video we are going over 3 counters for every killer in Dead by Daylight. Without further ado, let's get into it. First off, we have Trapper. Trapper is one of the worst killers in Dead by Daylight, mostly because he has to set up during early game, and early game is very crucial for a killer. Yet he can be very deadly from mid to late game, so here's how to counter him. Number 1, obviously try to get rid of his traps. If he has the blood coil add-on, which makes it to where if you are healthy and you disable one of his traps that you are then injured, try to get rid of his traps while you are already injured so you don't waste more time healing. Number 2, if you are looping him and he places a trap near your pallet and or a loop, use this time to make distance towards a different loop. Number 3, disable his traps near popular loops like shack, main building, TNL loops, etc. so you and your teammates do not vault straight into a fucking trap. Next up, we have Wraith. Wraith can be a very difficult killer to counter because of his speed when freshly uncloaked and him having no terror radius when he is cloaked, yet he still has counters. Number 1, do not drop the pallet if he is still cloaked. He cannot hit you while he is cloaked. I see so many survivors doing this and looking very silly, so avoid doing this because it will save you a pallet and waste more of his time. Number 2, stunning him while he is cloaked stuns him for much longer than him being uncloaked and stunned. Number 3, vaulting a window over and over while Wraith is cloaked prohibits him from vaulting and blocking the window. He cannot hit you, so it's a good way to waste more time and forces him to uncloak in order to hit you. Nurse. A lot of survivors hate Nurse. I am one of those people, yet there are many ways to counter her. Number 1, be unpredictable. Don't double back every time, don't hold W every time, etc. Make her confused and you're all good. This confuses Nurse, so she either has to guess you are going to do the same thing over and over or guess you'll change it up. It's 50-50, which is better than a guaranteed hit. Number 2, block line of sight. Use trees, high walls, rocks, and so on are very crucial because she cannot hit you, so it forces her to make a guess on what you're going to do. Use these obstacles with the first tip and you'll be able to run Nurse for much longer. Number 3, use lockers. When Nurse blinks, she either has to swing and get fatigued or not swing and still get fatigued. Hopping in a locker forces her fatigue, which saves you a hit and also wastes her time. Huntress. Yes, with her magnetic hatchets. Number 1, play high walls or medium walls. This makes it very hard for Huntress to hit you. Just make sure you crouch or else you'll get absolutely fucking blasted. Number 2, greed pallets. A lot of Huntresses pick up when you get near a pallet because dropping it will give them an easy hit. Greed it and watch how many times they pick up. After a while, they start to predict it. At that time, drop that bitch. Number 3, block line of sight. This makes it hard for the Huntress to get a clear shot on you, so she has to sit there and wait for an opening, and hopefully by then you'll be far enough for her to be confident enough to actually go for it. Bonus tip, count how many hatchets she throws and check when she goes to reload. This helps you give you some knowledge on how many hatchets she has, so you know when she's out of hatchets or not when you are in chase with her. Doctor, the most annoying motherfucker ever, like ever. Number 1, greed pallets. Doctors love to shock over and over to prohibit you from dropping a pallet, so run through them, and if they are shock happy, this will work in your favor 99.9% of the time. Number 2, when Doctor uses his Mega Blast thingy-majiggy, hop in a locker. You cannot get shocked while you are in a locker. Number 3, you can see the difference between fake and real pallets by looking for the wood chips on the floor. If there are wood chips on the floor, it's fake. If there is any wood chips, it's fucking real. Legion. Legion was my main back when I was a killer main, so I know him pretty well. Number 1, when Legion hits you in his frenzy, 99 your men. If you fully men, he can get another stack towards his insta down, so 99 after a little bit, finish your mend off. Number 2, avoid healing. It may not make sense to some of y'all, but it is a big waste of time. Legion is very quick to take a health state off, so healing over and over wastes a lot of time. A lot of Legions are starting to run Thanophobia, so that is maybe the only time I would actually recommend healing. Number 3, avoid grouping up. Play separately with your team so it makes it harder for Legion to be able to obtain his insta-down. Plague. Number 1, avoid using the fountains when sick because this will only make the plague stronger. If you are on Death Hook or it's endgame, then you can use it. If you have to use it, use the fountains near gens already completed so she wastes time traveling there just to get her power. Number 2, if Plague has her power, greed pallets. Plagues will always use their power when approaching a pallet, because if you drop it, it's a guaranteed help state. So greed and walk through. You can also stun her out of her power, but I wouldn't recommend going for this because most plagues will respect and just use their power. Number 3, use high walls. This goes without saying. It's hard for her to vomit on you if she cannot reach you. You can also avoid her vomit by crouching very close to her. Nemesis, aka the number 1 tunneler. Number 1, greed pallets. A lot of these killers have this counter, and I know you're sick and tired of me saying it, but it's fucking true. A lot of Nemi mains will use their tentacle when approaching a pallet because they believe you will drop it, so greed that son of a bitch. Number 2, avoid vaccinating unless deathhook or injured and sick. The vaccines are limited, so only use them when you absolutely need to. Number 3, flashlights, flashbangs, and so on can stun zombies. Also, diversion works on them too. If you don't have any of these and you're working on a gen with someone, one of you take the zombie away. You can also kill zombies with a pallet, but I wouldn't recommend wasting a pallet on that just because they respawn shortly after. Myers, aka Mr. Stalky Stalk. Number 1, block line of sight to avoid stock value. Kinda straightforward. Number 2, if you're not sure if he's tombstone or not, which means he can insta-kill you, hop in a locker to force the grab. You can also slow vault pallets or windows, commit to a gen, etc. Anything to force the grab. Once you know he's not a tombstone, you're free to complete your task. Number 3, if he's an infinite tier 3 Mikey, stop healing. I see so many survivors healing versus an infinite tier 3, and they look really fucking stupid doing so. No matter what, he can knock you down, healthy or not, so stop wasting time healing when you can be instant-knocked regardless of being healthy or not. Bonus tip, if he is taking long to get his power, that will show if he's an infinite or a tombstone, so pay attention to see how long it takes him to get his power. Second bonus tip, while Mikey is stalking, he has no collision, so you can inside tech him and fucking just do with this as you wish. It's kinda useless, but it's a fucking tip. Ghostface, aka the knockoff Mikey. Number 1, block line of sight, of course. Again, pretty fucking straightforward. Number 2, if you catch him stalking you, make him force the M1. You'd rather have 2 health states than just 1. Forcing the M1 resets the stalk meter on you, so he has to restalk you to make you insta-knockable. That's not a word, but it made sense. So take the M1 and try to get healed, and if he commits to you, take the fucking chase. Boom. Number 3, take hits for teammates that are exposed. If you are working on a gen with someone and they get exposed but you don't, take a fucking hit for them so they can create distance. If you see them running around, body block Ghostface so he's forced to hit you and your teammate can create distance that way also. You're fucking welcome. Mr. Whiskers, aka Wesker, aka Senor Orders Boros, however the fuck you say it. Number 1, fake vaults. If Wesker is power happy, fake windows and pallet vaults, so that way when he uses his power, he will vault instead. It's 1, hilarious, and 2, smart. So boom, shakalaka. Number 2, try to use the sprays when you can. Unlike going against Nemesis, you want to use the sprays going against Wesker whenever you can, because if he grabs you with his power, and you are already affected by his power, it's basically an instant knock. Also, if you are fully affected by his power, you get a speed nerf and you'll run much fucking slower. Number 3, use your loops. Loops are Wesker's worst fucking nightmare. He can't use his power unless he's godlike, which is pretty fucking rare. He will waste a lot of time trying to use his power to get an angle on you, so it will force him to M1 you instead. Bubba, aka the number 1 face camper. If Bubba is using his chainsaw, use lockers and hug loops. If he bumps into a locker, he will start his tantrum. Right as his tantrum ends, jump out. Learn to time this right because he will either grab you or just open the locker. You can also try to hug loops tight to hope that it bump into the fucking obstacle, which will start his tantrum and slow him down. Number 2, force M1s. Play around windows or pallets so he has no choice but to M1 instead of using his chainsaw. Number 3, if it's a basement Bubba, do not feed him kills. Just hope the survivor in basement that is getting camped doesn't 4%. The rest of survivors just work on gens. If you guys try to get the unhook, it'll just turn into 2 survivors getting camped and then 3 and then an easy win for Bubba. Leave the face cam survivor to die and work on gens. Sorry not sorry. Bonus tip, you can stun him out of his chainsaw sweep with precise timing. Wait for one of his sweeps to fully complete and then toss that bitch. Billy, aka Roadrunner. Number 1, use loops. Billies like to use their chainsaws a lot, and they're at their strongest when you're in an open area. Use tight loops or high walls so it's harder for them to see you and harder for them to get an insta down with their chainsaw. Number 2, try to juke his chainsaw attacks. It's a bit harder, but if you find yourself in an open area with nowhere to go, try to spin him out of his chainsaw attack. This is kind of a last resort, so you might as well just try to go for it. Number 3, use corners. Billies can't really make sharp turns. He can curve, especially with add-ons, but he cannot curve tight corners, so use that to your advantage. Blight, Blight is probably, in my opinion, the strongest killer in Dead by Daylight. A Blight main can be very deadly if he knows what he's doing, yet he still has counters. Number 1, use lockers. Like Nurse, Blight has a cooldown after his power. Use that to your advantage. Hop in a locker and wait for him to get his fatigue, and then hop out. Number 2, be unpredictable. Again, just like Nurse, a Blight will try to read you. Don't let him. Do double backs, hold W, etc. Just make sure you switch it up so you're not readable. Number 3, use corners. It's a little easier for Blights to counter this, but just like Billy's, it's hard for him to hit a corner spot. Unless, of course, he times his swing right, so just go for it and see what happens. Deathslinger. Be careful for these fuckers because they're most likely an old school Call of Duty player. Number 1, block line of sight. Blocking line of sight is crucial against Deathslinger, because just like Huntress, blocking line of sight will prevent him from getting an angle on you. Make it hard for him to get a shot off. Number 2, predict his shots. If you are stuck in a medium or low wall loop, try to predict his shots and crouch at the right time. It will go right over your head. Number 3, pre-drop pallets. It hurts me to say this, but you may find yourself in a position where you would need to pre-drop. If you pre-drop and get shot, it makes it to where at least you are being blocked from getting hit. It will make it to where you can struggle and get out without getting hit or down. Dredge, aka Turkey Bitch. Number 1, when looping Dredge, use his transportation ovary against him. He may place it near a pallet, which is pretty fucking stupid. If that's the case, and if he is overly patient, run through it so it shuts off his transportation thing. If he teleports, just throw the pallet right on his fucking forehead and stun him. Mind game him. Make him think you're gonna run through it and then double back, but don't do it too often because he'll just cancel it and get the easy hit. Number 2, Dredge may try to cut you off when looping and try to teleport to a locker you are heading to. If that's the case, run towards where he was when he teleported. For example, if I'm running towards Shack, he may try to teleport to the Shack lockers to cut me off. I would just move away at that time. Number 3, if lockers are in groups, do not lock both or all of them. Lock one of them instead. This makes it to where he can only teleport to that one that is already locked. This saves you locks on lockers. Bars. Bonus tip, if you have to heal or do a generator with a locker nearby, lock that bitch. This makes it to where you at least get a sound effect to know he is near you and you can now create distance. Freddy. Probably the worst killer, but can be very deadly if they have a good sense of game knowledge. Number 1, if it's a fake pallet Freddy, drop pallets that you know are already fake. For example, if I dropped Shack pallet but see it's there, drop that bitch. It can save you and your teammates a health state knowing there is actually no pallet there. Number 2, do not travel across the map just to use a clock to wake up. This is a huge waste of time. A teammate who isn't asleep can wake you up, and messing up a skill check on a generator can wake you up, but I do not recommend this for obvious reasons. If you find yourself near your clock, then use that bitch. Number 3, if it's a blood spot Freddy, just try to avoid the blood spot if possible. This is probably another killer that I can understand if you pre-drop against. Also, if you see him on a survivor and the blood spot is near you, walk through it just so you can get it out the way. Bonus tip, a lot of Freddys will fake go into your generator, so don't automatically panic if you see him teleporting to it unless you see his full body appearing. Onryo, aka Oreo, aka TV bitch, aka onion ring. Number 1, if you're working on a generator with a TV nearby, take out the tape before working on it. Complete the generator and then quickly bring the tape to the highlighted TV to avoid being condemned and moriable. Number 2, like Dredge, the Onryo will try to cut you off by teleporting to a TV that you are running towards. Look out for this and double back towards where you last saw her to create more distance. Number 3, use medium or low walls. Onryo is probably the shortest killer besides Victor, if you want to count him. Run a loop that you'll be able to see her over. Bonus tip, if the Onryo appears to be vanishing and reappearing quickly without a tear radius, then she is not demanifested yet. So don't panic and drop pallets. She cannot harm you while she's in this state, and she also has no collision. Pinhead. Gosh, I hate this fucking guy. Number 1, always have one person go for his box at all times to avoid his chain event. Even if it has to be you, just do it. This will make him practically useless. Number 2, block line of sight against his chain. When Pinhead picks up to use his chain, either mind game it or run around a corner so it's hard for him to get you with it. Number 3, be unpredictable. A lot of the times, Pinhead will try to use his power as you're approaching something like Shack or a high wall, so be ready to try and juke it. Pyramid Head, aka PP Head, aka Dorito Head. Number 1, use high walls and block line of sight. This makes it difficult for him to use his power considering he doesn't know where you are. Number 2, fake approaching pallets and fake vaulting. A lot of the times, Dorito Head will pick up to use his power in order to try and reach you, so you would move out the way at the last second to hopefully make a miss. Be careful against patient PP heads because he could read that you'll fake it and then put his power down and just swing and fucking hit you. Number 3, you can crouch across his trails in order to avoid being infected, so use this to avoid being caged. Hag, aka the jump scare bandit. Number 1, considering flashlights no longer get rid of her traps, try to wipe her traps whenever possible. Like Trapper, the most common places are shack and main, so get rid of those ASAP. Number 2, a lot of hags will swing as soon as they teleport to their traps, so approach run and then run back quickly to avoid getting hit. Number 3, the best time to run through hag traps are when she's carrying someone to a hook, considering she cannot teleport this time. Run through a spot where you know she placed all her fucking traps. Piggy, aka Boop the Snoop. Number 1, do not rush to get your head trap off unless it becomes active. This wastes so much time. If you are near one of her boxes, then sure, go for it, but don't panic automatically until agenda actually pops. Number 2, if your trap is not active, you can escape through the exit gates. If it is active and you try to escape, you will die. Rest in peace. Number 3, if Piggy is about to use her ambush attack, move away and create distance. Careful though, because a lot of Piggies will fake their ambush to get you to move away from the loop. Trickster, aka the SoundCloud artist. Number 1, greed pallets. Just like Huntress, he normally picks up when you are approaching a pallet and will get an easy health save if you do drop, so greed that bitch. Number 2, block line of sight. Obviously do this so it's hard for him to hit you with his fucking blades. That's just kind of self-explanatory. Number 3, if he's in his main event, use obstacles to block his line of sight. He is slower during his event, so use trees, walls, rocks, etc. Twins, another killer that I completely fucking despise. Number 1, if you are healthy and get attacked by Victor, keep him on you for as long as possible. This will prevent Charlotte from being able to lose him temporarily, considering he's busy being attached to you. Oh, cute. Number 2, do not use lockers. Victor will trap you in there, so completely avoid them. Number 3, if Victor is on you, try to block line of sight using loops and trees. If he lunges at you and miss him, punt the baby. Basically, Victor is your only concern. Charlotte herself is basura. Spirit, aka your typical 2000s emo girl. Number 1, walk/stand tech her. Spirit can see your scratch marks, so if you walk, she cannot see which direction you went. Standing still is kind of the safest thing though, because Spirit can see the grass move while she's in her face, so she can see where you are walking. So stand still, which will completely confuse her. Number 2, stun her out of her phase. This requires some good fucking hearing, but fuck it. A lot of the time, Spirit will phase out a loop to catch you off guard, yet you can hear where she is facing though, so try and predict it and drop the pellet right on her forehead. Number 3, double back during her phase. If she is phasing to catch up to you, start walking towards her tusk. This will confuse her because she'll just think you're holding W. Bonus tip. Sometimes Spirit would stand still to make you think she is in her phase, yet listen out for her actual phase sound effect. This will tell you if she's actually phasing or not. Do not fall for this trap. Clown, aka Big Body.
That guy in a little coat.
Number 1, pre-drop pallets. Again, it hurts me so fucking much to say this, but fuck it. Pre-dropping against him is probably the biggest thing. If you are hit by his pink bottles, the shit that slows you down, pre-drop it. Number 2, if he is making more bottles, create distance. As soon as you see him spinning his bottles and shit, hold W. Number 3, if he throws a yellow bottle on accident, use it. His speed bottles work for you also, so take advantage of it. Demogorgon, the cutest of all killers. Number 1, fake approaching pallets and windows again. A lot of them like to lunge to catch you mid-vault or mid-drop, so move away at the last second, just like against Dorito Head. Number 2, greed pallets. A lot of demo puppies like to start their shriek to break the pallet as soon as you drop it, so if you notice them shrieking as you go through a pallet, start greeting them. Number 3, close their portals if you have a chance to. A lot of demo doggies like to gain map control using their portals, so if you see a portal, close that bitch. Knight, the most annoying British person you can ever run into. If you see him starting to place one of his guards, hold W. The best counter against Knight is holding W away from him as soon as he starts his power. Number 2, take a hit from the Knight, not his guard. If you can't get the guard's banner, take a hit from the Knight instead of his guard. Getting hit from the Knight would despawn his guard, so it's better to lose one health state rather than getting knocked instantly. Number 3, if a guard is camping a hooked teammate, go for it. Unhooking a teammate with a guard on you would despawn the guard after unhooking them, so don't wait for the guard to despawn, just go for the unhook. Artist, aka Birdbox, aka Bird Bitch. Number 1, if Bird Lady places one of her crows at your loop, just move away from there. Kinda like the Knight, just create distance at that time. Number 2, you can get rid of the birds using lockers. Careful doing this though, because a lot of artist mains use Iron Maiden, which makes it to where you expose for a short time after leaving a locker. Number 3, fake holding W at a loop. A lot of artist mains will place a crow towards where they think you are heading, so hold W towards that direction, but stop right before you cross in front of the crow. A lot of artist mains will send their crow and it will miss you completely. Oni. Number 1, avoid giving early hits. Giving Oni early hits is terrible because getting his power early is not good for your team considering most of them will be healthy. Number 2, stay healed, the opposite of Legion. Oni thrives off of survivors being unhealthy, so staying healed makes him completely useless. Number 3, use corners. Like Blight, it's really hard for him to hit you around a corner, so use it to your advantage. Last but not least, Skull Merchant, you naughty pervs. Number 1, disable her drones. No shit. Do this especially if it's near a generator. Kind of self-explanatory. Number 2, avoid 3-genning. If you 3-gen against a Skull Merchant, it is game over basically. Her drones are easily replaceable, so just die at that point. Number 3, move away from loops when she places her drone. If you are injured, then you can stay, but if you are healthy, hold W. You'd rather get hit once than get instantly knocked down, so just hold W away from the loop. I noticed that almost all my viewers are not subbed. That makes your boy Soy a little sad. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that bell to get notified when I post a brand new video. Ciao for now.